Hello and welcome to day 163 in the Not Alone Today chronological Bible reading plan. Today we are reading 2 Kings chapter 16 verses 5 through 9. Then we go to Isaiah chapter 7 all the way to chapter 10 verse 4. Then we jump to Isaiah 17 verse 1 to 14. And we are still in the New Living Translation for this week.
2 Kings chapter 16 from verse 5. Then King Rezin of Aram and King Pekah of Israel came up to attack Jerusalem. They besieged Ahaz but could not conquer him. At that time, the king of Edom recovered the town of Elath for Edom. He drove out the people of Judah and sent Edomites to live there, as they do to this day.
King Ahaz sent messengers to King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria with this message: I am your servant and your vessel. Come up and rescue me from the attacking armies of Aram and Israel. Then Ahaz took the silver and gold from the temple of the Lord and the palace treasury and sent it as a payment to the Assyrian king. So the king of Assyria attacked the Aramean capital of Damascus and led its population away as captives, resettling them in Kir. He also killed King Rezin.
Isaiah chapter 7. When Ahaz, son of Jotham and grandson of Uzziah, was king of Judah, King Rezin of Syria and Pekah, son of Remaliah, the king of Israel, set out to attack Jerusalem. However, they were unable to carry out their plan.
The news had come to the royal court of Judah. Syria is allied with Israel against us. So the hearts of the king and his people trembled with fear, like trees shaking in a storm.
Then the Lord said to Isaiah, Take your son, Shear-Jashub, and go out to meet King Ahaz. You will find him at the end of the aqueduct that feeds water to the upper pool near the road leading to the field where cloth is washed. Tell him to stop worrying. Tell him he does not need to fear the fierce anger of those two burned out embers, King Rezin of Syria and Pekah son of Remaliah. Yes, the kings of Syria and Israel are plotting against him, saying, We will attack Judah and capture it for ourselves. Then we will install the son of Tabel as Judah's king. But this is what the sovereign Lord says: This invasion will never happen. It will never take place, for Syria is no stronger than its capital, Damascus, and Damascus is no stronger than its king, Rezin. As for Israel, within 65 years, it will be crushed and completely destroyed. Israel is no stronger than its capital, Samaria, and Samaria is no stronger than its king, Pekah, son of Remaliah. Unless your faith is firm, I cannot make you stand firm.
Later, the Lord sent this message to King Ahaz. Ask the Lord your God for a sign of confirmation, Ahaz. Make it as difficult as you want, as high as heaven, or as deep as the place of the dead.
But the king refused. No, he said, I will not test the Lord like that.
Then Isaiah said, Listen well, you royal family of David. Isn't it enough to exhaust human patience? Must you exhaust the patience of my God as well? All right then, the Lord himself will give you the sign. Look, the virgin will conceive a child. She will give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. By the time this child is old enough to choose what is right and reject what is wrong, he will be eating yogurt and honey. For before the child is that old, the lands of the two kings you fear so much will both be deserted.
Then the Lord will bring things on you, your nation and your family, unlike anything since Israel broke away from Judah. He will bring the king of Assyria upon you.
In that day the Lord will whistle for the army of southern Egypt and for the army of Assyria. They will swarm around you like flies and bees. They will come in vast hordes and settle in the fertile areas, and also in the desolate valleys, caves, and thorny places. In that day the Lord will hire a razor from beyond the Euphrates River, the king of Assyria, and use it to shave off everything, your land, your crops, and your people.
In that day, a farmer will be fortunate to have a cow and 2 sheep or goats left. Nevertheless, there will be enough milk for everyone because so few people will be left in the land. They will eat their fill of yogurt and honey. In that day, the lush vineyards, now worth 1,000 pieces of silver, will become patches of briars and thorns. The entire land will become a vast expanse of briars and thorns, a hunting ground overrun by wildlife. No one will go to the fertile hillsides where the gardens once grew, for briars and thorns will cover them. Cattle, sheep, and goats will graze there.
Chapter 8. Then the Lord said to me, make a large signboard and clearly write this name on it, Maher-shalal-hash-baz. I asked Uriah the priest and Zechariah son of Jeberechiah, both known as honest men, to witness my doing this.
Then I slept with my wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And the Lord called him, and the Lord said, call him Maher-shalal-hash-baz, for before this child is old enough to say Papa or Mama, the king of Assyria will carry away both the abundance of Damascus and the riches of Samaria.
Then the Lord spoke to me again and said, my care for the people of Judah is like the gently flowing waters of Shiloah, but they have rejected it. They are rejoicing over what will happen to King Rezin and King Pekah. Therefore the Lord will overwhelm them with a mighty flood from the Euphrates River, the king of Assyria and all his glory. This flood will overflow all its channels and sweep into Judah until it is chin deep. It will spread its wings, submerging your land from one end to the other. O Emmanuel.
Huddle together, you nations, and be terrified. Listen, all you distant lands. Prepare for battle, but you will be crushed. Yes, prepare for battle, but you will be crushed. Call your councils of war, but they will be worthless. Develop your strategies, but they will not succeed, for God is with us.
The Lord has given me a strong warning not to think like everyone else does. He said, don't call everything a conspiracy like they do, and don't live in dread of what frightens them. Make the Lord of heaven's armies holy in your life. He is the one you should fear. He is the one who should make you tremble. He will keep you safe. But to Israel and Judah, it will be a stone that makes people stumble, a rock that makes them fall. And for the people of Jerusalem, it will be a trap and a snare. Many will stumble and fall, never to rise again. They will be snared and captured.
Preserve the teaching of God and trust his instructions to those who follow me. I will wait for the Lord, who has turned away from the descendants of Jacob. I will put my hope in him.
I and the children the Lord has given me, as signs and warnings to Israel from the Lord of heaven's armies, who dwells in his temple on Mount Zion.
Someone may say to you, let's ask the mediums and those who consult the spirits of the dead. With their whisperings and mutterings, they will tell us what to do. But shouldn't people ask God for guidance? Should they live in seek guidance from the dead?
Look to God's instructions and teachings. People who contradict his word are completely in the dark. They will go from one place to another, weary and hungry. And because they are hungry, they will rage and curse their king and their God. They will look up to heaven and down at the earth. But wherever they look, there will be trouble and anguish and dark despair. They will be thrown out into the darkness.
Nevertheless, that time of darkness and despair will not go on forever. The land of Zebulun and Naphtali will be humbled. But there will be a time in the future when Galilee of the Gentiles, which lies along the road that runs between Jordan and the sea, will be filled with glory.
The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. For those who live in a land of deep darkness, a light will shine. You will enlarge the nation of Israel, and its people will rejoice. They will rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, and like warriors dividing the plunder. For you will break the yoke of their slavery, and lift the heavy burden from their shoulders. You will break the oppressor's rod, just as you did when you destroyed the army of Midian. The boots of the warrior and the uniforms blood-stained by war will all be burned. They will be fuel for the fire.
For a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His government and its peace will never end. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor, David, for all eternity. The passionate commitment of the Lord of the Lord of heaven's armies will make this happen.
The Lord has spoken out against Jacob. His judgment has fallen upon Israel. And the people of Israel and Samaria, who spoke with such pride and arrogance, will soon know it. They said, "We will replace the broken bricks of our ruins with finished stone, and replant the felled sycamore fig trees with cedars."
But the Lord will bring Rezin's enemies against Israel and stir up all their foes. The Syrians from the east and the Philistines from the west will bear their fangs and destroy Israel. But even then, the Lord's anger will not be satisfied. His fist is still poised to strike.
For after all these punishments, the people will still not repent. They will not seek the Lord of heaven's armies. Therefore, in a single day, the Lord will destroy both the head and the tail, the noble palm branch and the lowly reed. The leaders of Israel are the head, and the lying prophets are the tail. For the leaders of the people have misled them. They have led them down the path of destruction. That is why the Lord takes no pleasure in the young men and shows no mercy even to the widows and orphans. For they are all wicked hypocrites, and they all speak foolishness. But even then, the Lord's anger will not be satisfied. His fist is still poised to strike.
This wickedness is like a brush fire. It burns not only the briars and thorns, but also sets the forest ablaze. Its burning sends up clouds of smoke. The land will be blackened by the fury of the Lord of heaven's armies. The people will be fuel for the fire, and no one will spare even his own brother. They will attack their neighbor on the right, but will still be hungry. They will devour their neighbor on the left, but will not be satisfied. In the end, they will even eat their own children. Manasseh will feed on Ephraim. Ephraim will feed on Manasseh, and both will devour Judah. But even then, the Lord's anger will not be satisfied. His fist is still poised to strike.
Chapter 10, verse 1 to 4. What sorrow awaits the unjust judges and those who issue unfair laws. They deprive the poor of justice and deny the rights of the needy among my people. They prey on widows and take advantage of orphans. What will you do when I punish you? When I send disaster upon you from a distant land? To whom will you turn for help? Where will your treasures be safe? You will stumble along as prisoners or lie among the dead. But even then, the Lord's anger will not be satisfied. His fist is still poised to strike.
Chapter 17. This message came to me concerning Damascus. Look, the city of Damascus will disappear. It will become a heap of ruins. The towns of Aurora will be deserted. Flocks will graze in the streets and lie down undisturbed, with no one to chase them away. The fortified towns of Israel will also be destroyed, and the royal power of Damascus will end. All that remains of Syria will share the fate of Israel's departed glory, declares the Lord of heaven's armies.
In that day, Israel's glory will grow dim. Its robust body will waste away. The whole land will look like a grain field after the harvesters have gathered the grain. It will be desolate, like the fields in the valley of Rephaim after the harvest. Only a few of its people will be left, like stray olives left on a tree after the harvest. Only 2 or 3 remain in the highest branches. 4 or 5 scattered here and there on the limbs, declares the Lord, the God of Israel.
Then at last the people will look to their Creator and turn their eyes to the Holy One of Israel. They will no longer look to their idols for help or worship what their own hands have made. They will never again bow down to the Asherah poles or worship at the pagan shrines they have built. Their largest cities will be like a deserted forest, like the land the Hivites and Amorites abandoned when the Israelites came here so long ago. It will become utterly desolate. Why? Because you have turned from the God who can save you. You have forgotten the rock who can hide you. So you may plant the finest grapevines and import the most expensive seedlings. They may sprout on the day that you set them out. Yes, they may blossom on the very morning you plant them, but you will never pick any grapes from them. Your only harvest will be a load of grief and unrelieved pain.
Listen, the armies of many nations, roar like the roaring of the sea. Hear the thunder of the mighty forces as they rush forward like thundering waves. But though they thunder like breakers on a beach, God will silence them, and they will run away. They will flee like chaff scattered by the wind, like a tumbleweed whirling before a storm. In the evening, Israel waits in terror, but by dawn, its enemies are dead. This is the just reward of those who plunder us, a fitting end for those who destroy us. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
So today we have read from 2 Kings 16, from Isaiah 7, 8, 9, 10, and from Isaiah 17. In 2 Kings 16, continuing from where we left off yesterday, we read verses 5 to 9. And there we saw how the king of Aram, called King Rezin, and the king of Pekah of Israel came up to attack Jerusalem. We learned that Ahaz responded by sending gold from the temple and the palace to King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria to ask for his support. And that led eventually to what seemed at the time like some sort of victory over the kings of Aram and Israel. But in Isaiah chapter 7, we have the prophetic account that gives a fuller version of what actually happened. And so those two kings planned to come against Israel, but the Lord sent a message ahead through prophet Isaiah to King Ahaz and gave him a word concerning this. It's interesting that the sign that God would give regarding the eventual victory is the sign, or the very first messianic sign that we will see in the book of Isaiah regarding a virgin who will conceive and give birth to a son whose name will be called Emmanuel. In chapter 8, we were told about the coming Assyrian invasion. The Assyrians will go on to take the people of Israel, the northern kingdom of Israel, captive. And Isaiah spoke regarding this. God even asked him to name his child Mahashalalashbaz, a long name that before the child will be old enough to be able to pronounce it or even say daddy or mommy, the king of Assyria will come and carry away both the abundance of Damascus and the riches of Samaria. In other words, take into captivity both the people of Aram and the people of Israel. And then he issued a call to trust the Lord. In chapter 9, we have a very messianic prophecy regarding how this period of darkness will go on for quite a while, but it will not go on forever. In other words, from this moment till the days of John the Baptist and the days of Jesus eventually, there is somewhat a looming darkness that will cover history for that period. People taken into captivity, they returning back, trying to rebuild the land, but eventually it will get to a point where there are no prophets speaking to the people, and that darkness will linger for a long time until unto us a child will be born, and a son will be given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Isaiah will turn on to begin to speak about the Lord's anger against Israel, about the Lord's anger against them, and it was like layers upon layers of disaster upon disaster, everyone ending with, but the Lord's anger will not be satisfied. His fist is still poised to strike. And that goes on to the end, to where we stopped in chapter 10. And then in chapter 17, Isaiah brought a message concerning Damascus. Damascus is the capital of Aram. And again, that prophecy is a prophecy regarding the judgment that is coming to them, and indeed to many other nations around them. And that is what we have read for today. Having given that overview, we'll just spotlight some of the verses that stood out to us. And what stood out to you from today's reading?
The first part that stood out to me was in verse 15, when we're told that by the time Jesus is old enough to know what is right and reject what is wrong, he'll be eating yogurt and honey. I felt like yogurt in the Bible. And then in verse 22, they also mention how the people will eat their fill of yogurt and honey. Then I went to another translation to check, and in that translation they called yogurt curd. That stood out to me. I don't know why, it just stood out to me. But another part that stood out to me was verse 8.
Maybe it's telling us, eat yogurt.
Chapter 8, verse 10, where God said that, let people prepare for battle. Let them call their councils of war, develop strategies, but they will not succeed because God is with us.
Yeah.
And it's just this is instructive to me in my career pursuit. In that, I don't know, sometimes, I'll be honest, I get scared of the job description, especially when I don't meet all the criteria. And they keep niggling in my mind, like, how can I not meet that part? How can I not meet that part? And the Holy Spirit would say, it's not about the part that you don't meet. It's the way you coin your personal statement to put yourself as so appealing. You would weigh higher or weightier than the actual criteria they're looking for. So when I read that strategies they will not succeed in things, the Holy Spirit reminded me of that. Like it's not enough to fear what is unknown. Just step out in faith and see what I'll do. For God is with me. Yeah. What stood out to you?
For me, in chapter 7, verse 9, the conclusion of Isaiah's prophecy to Ahaz about the impending invasion says, unless your faith is firm, I cannot make you stand firm. And I saw from that the balance between God giving us a prophetic word and the place of our own responsibility to embrace it by faith. The Lord has said in that prophetical message, this invasion will never happen. It will never take place. But then he would balance that by saying, actually, unless your faith is firm, I cannot make you stand firm. So we have that responsibility to stand in the words that God is speaking over us. And then again, as we've mentioned, I love the sign of Emmanuel that we read about. The fact that the sign that God is going to give to this king about the assurance that his word will come true is the sign that a virgin will conceive. And this is the interesting thing about Isaiah. He of course, he's speaking as a prophet and he's speaking the messages that God is giving him. But by the time we begin to look back, at least with the parts of the prophecies that we have seen fulfilled, the timeline are all sort of not messed up, but confusing. Because he's saying that an invasion that indeed was supposed to happen at that time, it was an imminent invasion, something that is literally about to happen. But he's saying the sign that God is going to give you is the sign that a virgin will conceive and give birth to a child called Emmanuel. And that is not going to happen until hundreds of years down the line. And so we can begin to see how the tension between the already and the not yet, such that, by the time Jesus will get on the scene and he's saying all these things and his disciples are realizing, actually, we have the Messiah with us. They are expecting all of these prophecies of Isaiah to be fulfilled hook, line, and sinker, including the fact that, he's going to be a kind of king that will take over the throne of David and rule forever. And yet Jesus is doing everything but become a king. In fact, when they were going to attempt to make him a king, the Bible told us he literally escaped from that setting, from that context and that scenario. And so, we need to continue to hold that tension as we engage with the prophecies of Isaiah. That's because part of the things Isaiah is saying is referring to the eventual second coming of Jesus, which has yet to happen. But then he sees and begins to say the things that he that sees the end from the beginning is showing to him and revealing to him. I found that quite interesting. You've mentioned Isaiah 8:10. That stood out to me as well. It says scripture to remember when you're praying as well, agreeing with God against the plans and the strategies of the enemy. I like the context in which you've applied it to career, and I mean, that's just fascinating. And then in verse 12 of that chapter 8, there was something that was said that I think is very apt for those of us in the diaspora to take to mind in light of all the chaos around us. It says, don't call everything a conspiracy like they do, and don't live in dread of what frightens them. Make the Lord of heaven's armies holy in your life. He is the one you should fear. He's the one who should make you tremble, not the impending policies not the possible changes in government, not the possible changes that might be favorable or unfavorable. People just make a big deal out of things and begin to say all sorts of conspiracies. They are not even yet realities, but people are already talking about them like, if this happens, then this will happen. And we make all these predictions and it brings dread. But it says here categorically, don't live in dread of what frightens the people of the world. Make the Lord the one you should fear. He's able to do and undo. So if we should fear anyone, fear God. It's quite instructive. And finally, for me, of course, is the messianic prophecy in chapter 9 about Jesus. For a child is born to us, a son is given to us, and the context into which that comes. Again, letting us know that this time of darkness, it says in verse 1, will not go on forever. In fact, indeed, they have been in an era of darkness. If all these kings that ruled in Northern Kingdom, not a single one of them was said to have done what was pleasing to God. It's a time of darkness that will go on up until the time when the Messiah will come on the scene and begin to fulfill these promises. And lastly, verse 18 of chapter 8, I and the children the Lord has given me were for signs and wonders, it says in NKJV. Warnings, it says here, to Israel from the Lord of heaven's armies. And don't you find it fascinating, Anu, that Isaiah literally, as part of his prophecy, said he slept with his wife so that she can give birth to a son that they can give an interesting name to, just to make a point. And so when he says, I and my children were for signs and warnings to Israel, actually it's something he himself has embodied. Because they've literally had a child that it was more or less born just as a prophetic indicator of what is to come.
That's why sometimes when that verse, I and the children the Lord has given us for signs and wonders,
yes,
I don't read it the same way other people read it. I read it to mean that we actually, Yoruba call it akbere, like our lives are like proper examples of what will happen to the land.
Yeah.
But most times when we do the prayer and want to proclaim it, we proclaim it as though, we proclaim it in the aspect of prosperity, but the context wasn't prosperity.
Indeed.
The context was actually waiting, and when I read it, it actually makes me shudder. Like, Lord, please don't let me miss my mark. Like, if our lives are indeed examples unto others, signs and wonders of the times that we're in. It actually reminds us of our responsibility.
Yeah.
It's not a name it, claim it thing. It's a sit down and rethink what you've been told about these ones.
Indeed.
And what you've been told about you as a family. How are you assigned right now? How is your son assigned in the school? How are you guys wonders in the land he has given you?
Exactly.
How are you showing that? And that's how,
Indeed. So thank you for joining us for day 163. We will flip the page on day 164 as we continue in the reading. We'll still be in the book of Isaiah, and then we'll go into 2 Kings to locate ourselves again, and then we'll see the prophecy of Micah, or we'll begin to consider the prophecy of prophet Micah. But till then, just remember,
you're not alone.
Today, God bless you.